This is a special edition of the Sean Hannity Show. America trapped behind enemy lines. Day number 159.
All right, day 159, and no, it wasn't a big deal at yesterday's disaster of a press conference, was it? I walk away from yesterday, and, Linda, we had some people complaining to me that we aired the Biden presser. It's only the second since he's been president. I deemed it to be newsworthy, not for the reasons that maybe some people suspect, because I knew in my heart this is not going to go well. And it starts out, he's reading the teleprompter and he's just lying through his teeth, and he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and we've record this and record that, and it's like so disconnected from truth and reality. I started writing notes. I think I ended up with 7, 8, 9 pages by the time it was all said and done of just all the sheer and utter, BS that he's peddling himself. Maybe he actually believes all of this. And, there's a lot of questions that we had brought up yesterday. I won't repeat them now, that could have been asked by the media, that weren't asked by the media, that never will be asked by the media. And it is what it is. If he wants to believe that he's the greatest president that has achieved more than any president in history, you go right on believing that lie, Joe, because all the evidence suggests just the opposite is true. The idea that you think your only mistake is you haven't gone out to talk to the American people enough. That's not true either. Did you overpromise and underdeliver? Yeah. We try to underpromise and overdeliver in everything that we do in life. I try to teach that to my kids and always do the extra. But the idea that he actually claimed he outperformed all expectations. I didn't overpromise, but I did outperform what anyone thought would happen. Yeah, we've made enormous progress. I'm like, I'm not sure. Does he really believe her, or was it just written for him or beaten into his head? Now, it is my strong belief, and I can't prove this, Joe Biden has barely been seen or heard from for the last 4 or 5 days leading into yesterday. And by the way, that was typically the pattern that the campaign took in 2020, before any big moment during the campaign, before a debate, for example, or before the Democratic National Convention, or before the last press conference, the first press conference. The idea that he's not recognizing what really has caused inflation, and it's connected directly to his policies of Green New Deal-ism and climate change, fanaticism is deeply troubling. Inflation has nothing to do with him. It's the supply chain crisis, and that's the fault of COVID-19. No, it's not the supply chain. And then he claimed it's because we didn't pass Build Back Broke. That's not the reason either. In large part, it's his economic policies that have failed, and it's also his energy policies that have failed dramatically. And, I've always said this. Probably one of the greatest achievements Donald Trump had was making America energy independent for the first time in 75 years. When Joe Biden came into office 1 year ago today, when Joe Biden, we were an energy independent country. We reduced our net output projections of about 40%, right around that level. We know what he did with the Keystone XL pipeline. We know the waiver he gave Vladimir Putin for Nord Stream 2 for his pipeline, which then has pushed our Western European allies right into Putin's hands. He's making Putin and Russia rich again. But inflation is directly related to the higher cost of energy that was highly preventable. And it's all built into this climate change fanaticism cult that he's a part of, and Bernie Sanders and the Bernie Biden manifesto and New Green Deal-ism. It's all one and the same. And when you artificially reduce, as he has, the supply of energy and the demand remains even constant, never mind the fact that it might increase, well, that drives prices up. And we're now headed towards $100 for a barrel of oil. And that's why you're paying, as on average, $1.50 more a gallon around the country. Now that the oil futures and the price of a barrel of oil have gone up, expect prices to again go up even more significantly. If we get to $100 a barrel or higher, it's going to go up even further. There's a little bit of a lag time between purchasing the barrel of oil, refining it, and bringing it to the gas station. So there's a lag time in terms of you seeing the price increases, but it is inevitable now. It is now going to happen. It's not if, it's just a matter of when. And releasing the strategic petroleum reserves is not the answer either. But we pay more to fill up our gas tank. We pay more, truck drivers pay more for the diesel they put in their trucks. Those trucks deliver every single item to every single store that we go to. That increases the prices of every item we are now buying. And add the supply chain crisis, again, Biden caused to that. And now we find ourselves where the average American family is paying, a household is now paying $5,000 extra in Biden's inflation tax. He actually is claiming that, he brought gas prices down. I can't believe that's just an outright lie. Cut off pipelines, restricted drilling and exploration. It's $1.50 a gallon every time you fill up your tank is a lot. That means it's going to cost $500,000 more to heat your home this summer. Heat your home this winter. It's going to cost more to cool your home in the summer. And Kamala Harris is doing what has Kamala Harris done on voting rights? They didn't get the bill passed last night. He didn't liken his opponents. I love this. He got very angry. He said, I did not liken my opponents of his voting rights bills to racists and segregationists during his speech last week. Yes, he did. Claiming he's a capitalist made me want to vomit. Everything, of course, is Republicans' fault, Trump's fault, previous administration. And then we have the disaster on Russia. James Rosen's question on his mental cognitive decline was crucial. I think from an international standpoint, I cannot believe that he actually talked about, well, it depends what Putin decides, and it looks like he's probably going to go in, and we're going to probably have to, build up sanctions against him, but that'll depend on whether it's a minor incursion. A minor invasion? Invading an independent country? A minor incursion. That's how we're going to describe that. To me, it seemed like a wink and a nod and a Biden stamp of approval for Russia to involve itself in an incursion of any kind into Ukraine, which, by the way, has sent the world reeling. Our allies are shocked and just stymied by this. They don't even know what to say and think about it. The idea that what he was saying, the clip of Biden appearing to tell reporters that he did not overpromise. Okay, but he outperformed. Outperformed in what category? What world is he living in? Because the Biden America that I see, with a 40-year high of inflation, with high gas prices than we've paid now in 8 years, with everything we buy costing more as a result of his economic and energy policies, the people disproportionately impacted negatively by all this, the people he claims to have a monopoly of compassion for, the poor and the middle class, they cannot afford to pay that much more to fill up their gas tank and heat their homes and buy groceries and put food on the table. And he's causing all of this. And for whatever reason, he thinks he's successful. Is he really going to identify outperformance on his border policies that have failed? Getting rid of the stay in Mexico policy, stop building the wall, and catch and release becomes process and release. Preferential treatment for illegal immigrants. No COVID tests for them, we're told, because they're not going to be here very long. That turned out to be another big lie. No vaccine mandates for them either. And they get free transportation and dumped in the dark of night in states all over the country. Now states like Pennsylvania and Florida and others are saying, nope, we're not putting up with this crap. We're not aiding and abetting law breaking like Joe Biden is. We're going to uphold the rule of law. And if you're going to allow them to stay in the country illegally, that's your problem. And you're going to provide the food, shelter, transportation, education, health care, and everything else in between, because you're the ones facilitating the law breaking and aiding and abetting in it. We're going to really say these energy policies are working? Is there any single one item we can point to where Biden really has made this country and put this country in a better position? When he lost his cool on this reporter, all the reporter did was go back and say exactly, refer to exactly what he had said. He's now abusing a reporter in defense of his indefensible Bull Connor Jefferson Davis line. And ironically, it comes from the guy that praised segregationists, from Strom Thurmond to George Wallace himself, to the former Klansman Robert Byrd, the guy that he partnered to stop integration of public schools in the 70s with. He actually partnered with him. He himself was on the wrong side of history. He didn't want integration of schools. So he didn't want public schools becoming, in his words, racial jungles. Nobody talks about that. Kamala Harris did once. She seems to have forgotten that. There are some in the media that have rushed to his defense, but they sound silly. Probably the dumbest I heard is somebody sent me something from, I guess Sweet Baby James printed out some comment of Rachel Maddow. The reason that he stayed out so long was to show Putin that he's tough and Putin that he has stamina. I'm like, by the end of this press conference, he's like falling asleep on the podium. I mean, he became angry. He was lucid at times for sure, but he's been missing in action the last 4 or 5 days. My best guess is he's preparing. And if this is the best you're going to get with 4 or 5 days of preparing, we're in deep trouble. And he was obviously tired, and he began to mumble and stumble and fumble, and these long pauses of his. I mean, it's cringe inducing. You know, add to all of this Biden, Harris, top Democratic leaders questioning the legitimacy of the upcoming midterms. Excuse me? Why? Well, on the other hand, he's bragging about the record turnout in 2020 that he says elected him. So what exactly is it? Who are these people that are preventing, and they're claiming it's racist, that are preventing minorities from voting? Who are the people that they're talking about? What state are they talking about? What law specifically are they referring to? Because the most restrictive state in terms of voting with the least accessibility happens to be his state of Delaware, or as he refers to it as, my state's a slave state. They don't have drop boxes. They don't have in-person early voting at all. You need a request for an absentee ballot. And yeah, they have that horrible, horrific voter ID. It's one of the most restrictive in the country. Never once lifted a finger to fix it. So it tells you it's all about politics. Democrats have calculated that this is their best chance of winning elections. And they have nefarious intentions as usual. All right, 25 now to the top of the hour. 800-941-SEAN. You want to be a part of the program. Programming announcement. Donald Trump will be on Hannity tonight responding to Joe Biden's disaster of a press conference yesterday. We do have Biden's lies, or at least a few of them. Let's play that.
Why are you trying so hard in your first year to pull the country so far to the left?
Well, I'm not. If you notice, I haven't attacked anybody publicly. Any senator, any congressman. My Build Back Better plan will address the biggest cost of working families face every day. And it will do all this without raising a single penny in taxes on people making under $400,000 a year. And for the first time in a long time, this country's working people actually got a raise. We've seen record job creation, record economic growth in the past year. Anybody who listened to the speech, I did not say that there were going to be a George Wallace or a Bull Connor.
First time in a long time working people have gotten a raise. No. Working people are suffering under the 40-year inflation high that you created. Then you have the gaffes and the bizarre moments of Biden. You can't ignore this. It's like the elephant in the room here. Listen.
We passed a lot of things that people don't even understand what's in it, understandably. I mean, one of the things that I remember saying, and I'll end this, I think it's extremely realistic to say to people, because let me back up. So whether or not we can actually get an election, and by the way, I haven't given up. We haven't finished the vote yet on what's going on voting rights and the John Lewis bill and others. Allison Harris, please. Very few schools are closing. Over 95% are still open. Is becoming much more informed on the motives of some of the political players and some of the political parties.
And can you guarantee, do you commit that she will be your running mate in 2024, provided that you run again?
Yes and yes.
Okay. You don't care to expand?
Pardon me?
Do you care to expand on voting?
No, there's no need to. How many more hours am I doing this? I'm happy to stick around. You always ask me the nicest question, and there's more to get done. But look, let me ask a rhetorical question. No, I won't. Anyway. Thank you.
One more question, Mr. President.
By the way, it's a quarter of, guys, so I'm going to do this. If you answer me easy questions, I'll give you quick answers.
I just can't even, words can't describe what you just heard there. And that was the short version. If it's amazing is he knows voting rights bill is dead. Manchin and Sinema both voted it down. Schumer's attempt, the power grab of the liberals and the left, and, they want it all. Eliminating the filibusters is the first start. Then it's the beginning. Then they start with their Voting Rights Act. But why isn't something as simple as voter ID in there? Signature verification, partisan observers observing, updated voter rolls, simple things that only legal citizens have the right to vote. What part of him not getting Build Back Better, his radical New Green Deal socialist spending bill, what part of it did he not get? Manchin said it's done. It's not happening. How is it possible he doesn't understand that we've had the largest spike from one year to the next in the last 40 years, a 40-year high in terms of inflation? How does he not understand the connection between the price of energy and oil and his adherence to climate change cultism is hurting every American in every way economically possible, because it impacts everything we buy at every store we go to. It impacts every time we go to the gas pump. It impacts every heating bill and cooling bill. How does he think, bragging about jobs being created? What about the labor shortage? What about the unfulfilled jobs that are out there? Nobody asked, why did you give Vladimir Putin the green light for his Nord Stream 2 pipeline while simultaneously killing the Keystone XL pipeline? Biden makes statements, he gave the green light for Putin to invade Ukraine. A minor incursion. No specifics. Minor incursion. Comments
Russia
were so bad that even Dick Durbin said he'd like to ask what Biden was thinking specifically on that. That's the second time in a week now that Dick Durbin has distanced himself from Joe Biden. And he's a hardcore, he'll go to the mat for any Democrat on anything. He was handed all the vaccines in the world, monoclonal antibodies. And then his answer, well, we were a little slow. A little? We didn't see Omicron coming. Now we know that he was presented with a plan in early October of last year to prepare for the holiday season and the predictable uptick in positive cases for COVID-19, knowing that Omicron was now a highly contagious variant. And he did nothing. He could have produced 732 million COVID tests a month. He was presented with that plan. They rejected it. How did he run out of monoclonal antibodies, which he only mentioned for the first time in his vaccine mandate speech? How did we run out of them? We never had a shortage of monoclonal antibodies. He mentions antivirals for the first time that I've heard last night. Why? We've known about them for months and months. Doctors have been talking to me about them. Why didn't we mass produce them? Lives could be saved. You know, just 10 days ago, we broke the previous U.S. hospitalization record with 132,000 in a day. You know, the more people died in 2021 than 2020 from COVID because of Joe. What has he done? He said it was a travesty that Donald Trump didn't have enough tests in the beginning of the pandemic. Well, what is it now? What words, what adjectives would we use now? His focus on the supply chain crisis, you know, there was a November 10th piece in the Business Insider that highlighted just how bad this crisis at our ports. A record 111 container ships floating off California's busiest ports, despite Biden's 24/7 quote schedule and looming fines. You know, why is he lashing out at industry like the meat industry for the high price of meat these days and not focusing on the fact that meat gets moved around? We had a rancher call into this program and describe, well, first we take the cattle, they're alive, we move them to the slaughterhouse, and then they go to this other place and they get processed there, and then after they get processed, then they get packed at another place, and then they get distributed around the country. And every step of the way, when you put them in an 18-wheeler, maybe in this case a refrigerated one, that costs every driver that much more money. Why are you lashing out at them? Why are you lashing? I'm a capitalist, but, you know, capitalism needs competition. There's plenty of competition. We didn't have high meat prices under Donald Trump's policies, as per the most recent example. You know, several cities. How come he didn't mention crime in this speech? How come that didn't come up? You know, how is it that, you know, he's proud of everything he did with Afghanistan? And I'm like, you abandoned Americans, but you've turned the page. You know, I'll make no apologies for Afghanistan. There was no easy way to get out. Actually, we now know from your own military that you were warned about what would happen and you still didn't lift a finger. The biggest foreign policy preventable blunder in U.S. history. It's not just the 13 dead U.S. Marines, which was a disaster. Biden was caught checking his watch several times. Remember, as the bodies were being unloaded that day, there were family members that wouldn't talk to him that day. We interviewed some of them. You know, Biden's DOJ releasing a memo that the FBI should mobilize against parents opposed to critical race theory in school, you know, citing the threats that parents are posing. Letter shows the National School Board Association request to classify protests, meaning parents, as domestic terrorism. His big lie, no one making under $400,000 will have their taxes raised. Oh, okay. Well, that's not working out well either, because the real truth of the matter is that's per couple. $200,000 per individual. Overall taxpayers in the top 5%, you know, they're not the ones that are impacted as greatly as the poor and the middle class. 27% of taxpayers that make 75 to 100 grand a year under his proposal will have an income tax hike. 19% of taxpayers earning between 50 and 75,000 would have a tax increase under his plan. You'll actually see your standard of living go up and costs go down. No, not with inflation at a 40-year high. The Penn Wharton study shows that the inflation is impacting households to the tune of almost $5,000 per household. You know, he said the supply chain crisis will be fixed in a 90-day sprint. Said that in early November. You know, I'm the most pro-union president. Well, turns out Biden so far has lost 8,000 union jobs. Maybe we can get back the Keystone XL pipeline. Let's start there. I'll expand opportunities for our farmers and not count them out. Well, the tax hikes and his Build Back Broke agenda, that would have hurt farmers' ability to sell their goods. It would hurt rural America even more. You know, I will shut down the virus. Well, nobody could predict what would happen with the virus. I will not make vaccines mandatory. Now they're mandatory. He lost that in the Supreme Court. Mask mandate will be lifted after 100 days. It won't last forever. Yeah, forget that promise also. I promise I will protect America, protect you, protect your family. I will defend this nation from threats seen and unseen. Okay. Where was he in the summer of 2020 when 574 riots? He barely mentioned it. His own vice president is promoting a bail fund for people involved in the unrest. The same vice president on with Stephen Colbert. We're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. They shouldn't stop. We won't stop. I'll get the opioid crisis under control. Yeah, we have more opiates, they're getting more fentanyl at the border than we've ever gotten in history. Unbelievable. The Afghan withdrawal would be conducted orderly and safely. I'll always tell you the truth. I will be president for all Americans, not just a Democratic president. I will unify this country. Okay. You know, his bizarre lies, speaking about Georgia rights, even the Washington Post gave him 4 Pinocchios and other arrests for there's little evidence. PolitiFact evidence is scant that Joe Biden was arrested for ever protesting for civil rights. He strongly implied he was arrested for wandering on the Senate floor as a starstruck kid. That didn't happen. He claimed he was arrested in South Africa trying to visit Nelson Mandela. That didn't happen. He claimed he helped desecrate restaurants and movie theaters while speaking to grad students in December. However, during his plagiarized speech in 1987, he said he was not an activist. I was not marching. I was not down in Selma. I was not anywhere else. Oh, sorry about the conflict. Ask yourself, is this the best we can do? Because if this is the best we can do, we're in trouble. They mentioned crime 0 times during this presser. Immigration only twice. Voting was mentioned 28 times. Russia mentioned a whopping 33 times. Even Democrats say it was just an unmitigated disaster on every front. AP fact-checking his claims. No. On the virus, job gains, wrong. If this press conference was supposed to reset his agenda and inspire confidence, this is the worst moment I can think of since I've followed politics my whole life, where somebody performed this poorly and is this unfit for this job. Well, he said, well, Donald Trump, he was out there fighting with the press and everything. I'm like, yeah, good thing he did. Wall Street Journal editorial board had a good point, too. He didn't even delve into the idea of a course correction. He just doubled down. I'm going to do Build Back Better in pieces. We're going to go for the Voting Rights Act in pieces. And I'm going to do things by executive fiat. And I'm going to go out and talk to people more. But he has no idea why people have questions about his mental acumen, his cognitive abilities. If you're like me, after yesterday, you're probably having more sleepless nights than ever. But anyway, that's where MyPillow comes in, and all things MyPillow.com. Right now, they have a special deal going on. If you haven't tried their My Slippers, they're incredible. They're offering them at 50% off when you go to the Sean Hannity Square at MyPillow.com. You can check out their overstock sale as well. That includes deep discounts on select pillows, towels, and that's only for a limited time. You get deep discounts on other great MyPillow products. You go to MyPillow.com, click on the Sean Hannity Square, and you'll get 50% off their My Slippers. Remember, All MyPillow products have a 60-day unconditional money-back guarantee. You put in the promo code Hannity when you go to MyPillow.com, go to the Sean Hannity Square, or mention my name when you call 800-919-6090. Then those products will arrive, and the sleep that you want, you need, you crave, you desire, and you deserve will be yours. It's that simple. MyPillow.com, Sean Hannity Square.
Sean Hannity.
All right, load it up. When we come back, all things Simple Man Bill O'Reilly will join us. We'll get his take on, well, I'll give you his take. Electing Biden was a terrible mistake. He'll explain next. Day 170 since Joe Biden made the promise he wouldn't abandon Americans and leave them hostage and stab them in the back, and he did it anyway. And, of course, he's turned the page with the rest of the media mob. We're not going to stop mentioning it. Hannity, it's not doing any good. Maybe not. Maybe it's not. But how would you feel if it was your family member? That's how I look at this. This is not the United States of America that I know, love, and respect. The land of the free and home of the brave. We don't abandon fellow Americans in the field of battle, especially when we promise them we won't do that. That's where we got to be a little better than that, for sure. You know, I told you yesterday, fake news CNN had a headline, and I can't believe I didn't realize it at the time. Well, where this is probably likely coming from is Joe Biden's presidency doomed? Well, today they got another zinger out there. The lead sentence is about a report about gas prices. Quote, President Joe Biden's 2022 is off to a dreadful start. Prices at the pump could make it even worse. Crude oil has already zoomed back to 2-month highs. Gas prices, which move with a lag. In other words, with the price of oil, once the price of oil goes up, you know, there'll be a lag time, but that means the price of gasoline goes up as well. The energy resurgence is only going to add to the inflation and economic anxiety. By the way, the Dow's been down a lot today. It's been fluctuating it's been pretty volatile. I saw it down nearly 600 at one point. I think it's like 450, somewhere around there right now, last time I took a look. And it's all because we now expect the Fed is going to start raising interest rates. We expect 3 to 4 this year. AmericanFinancing.net. Telling you, it's a lot of money to be saved if you haven't refinanced your home. Anyway, crude oil zooming back up, energy resurgence. But I figured out now that fake news CNN, and it's been widely reported, lost 90% of their viewing audience from a year ago. So I'm wondering, you know, they've got, you know, managerial transitions going on there. I wonder if maybe they figured out, maybe bashing Trump every second, minute, hour of every day now that he's been out of office a full year. Maybe it's time to shift gears a little bit. In 2 days, it'll be a full year. He hasn't been president. Joe Biden was sworn in, 1 year ago. Why are we still talking about Donald Trump? Anyway, it's not working. Even the ratings on the January 6th, on the anniversary, did not rate for them, or anybody, except for Fox. And so it's just interesting to watch. So you have to wonder, maybe this liberal socialist build back better utopia, and let's get rid of the filibuster, and let's pack the courts, and let's raise taxes, and let's adopt new Green Deal socialism, and let's let the Russians do whatever the hell they want on the Ukrainian border, and let's let the Chinese go ahead and fly their fighter jets over Taiwan airspace, and let's let the border go straight to hell, and the American taxpayer, foot the bill for all of it, and preferential treatment for illegal immigrants because they don't have to get COVID tested, and there's no vaccine mandate for them, and they get free transportation to the state of their choice. Be interesting to see what happens when Pennsylvania and Florida start shipping the illegal immigrants dropped in their states in the middle of the night back to Washington, D.C. or Delaware, because they're now in the process of preparing to do just that. Anyway, by the way, the Pelosi pick for transportation chair repeatedly rammed into a parked car. You can't make this up. I mean, it's that bad. Kamala Harris has hired a top aide who reportedly claimed that Bush stole the 2000 election. Whoopsie daisy. Oh, I guess it is fair game. By the way, many of these Democrats claimed that Bush stole the 2000 election, was illegitimate as a president. They said the same thing in 2016, and Stacey Abrams still thinks she won in 2018. And she is a darling of the all things radical Democratic socialists. I noticed this. It was a pretty funny moment. Do you believe, this is to Elizabeth Warren, do you believe that President Biden is up for the job? Answer.
Okay, let me ask you about 2024. Do you believe that President Biden is up for the job?
President Biden's running for re-election. I expect to support him. His approval ratings are some of the lowest that they've been for a very long time. I understand that, but remember, we've just finished the first quarter. We're just starting into the second quarter here. So we've got a lot of time, a lot of work in front of us.
Oh, but you only have
50-0.
probably less than a year before you lose both the Senate and the House. All the polls, the polls are very bad, right? I mean, the Gallup had a poll recently that showed a preference nationally for Republicans at a 5-point margin over Democrats. You started the year with the insurrection and a 9-point advantage.
No, I know.
In the fourth quarter, it was a 5-point advantage to the Republicans. So something's not right here.
You think? How hard is this to figure out? A 40-year high with inflation. We now have gas prices on average of about $1.50 a gallon. And, that's 20, 30, $35 extra to fill up your tank every time you fill up your tank. You'll pay another $1,000 in all likelihood to heat your home this winter. We've got every item you buy in every store that gets there with an 18-wheeler with diesel in it. Yeah, you're paying more to cover the cost for the higher energy, all artificially caused by Joe Biden. You see the border disaster, the COVID disaster, more dead in 2021 than 2020, running out of tests, running out of therapeutics that we had for 18 months. How do you run out of these things? That literally shocked me. I can't believe what incompetent. They said we didn't see this coming. How did you not see it coming when it's a virus that's been mutating here, there, and everywhere? There's no excuse for that failure. The antivirals that apparently every doctor raves about, I don't know much about them myself, but they're put out by Pfizer and Merck. Nobody did any Operation Warp Speed on that. And as was mentioned in that little exchange there, Americans' political preferences shifted dramatically over 2021, swinging from a 9-point lead for Democrats. In other words, the question is, do you identify as a Democrat or identify as a Republican? And it was 49-40 in the first quarter of 2021. Now it's 47% identify as a Republican and 42% as a Democrat. Well, that's a pretty massive swing from a 9-point advantage to a 5-point disadvantage. That's a 14-point swing. So something is going on here. The major issue is there's not one single thing that they can point to that is a success. Now, I saw James Carville, and I like James Carville. I've known James Carville for years. James Carville is a fun guy to hang out with. It was only a few months before Tim Russert died that he had moderated a debate between me and Carville. And we had a lot of fun. Behind the scenes, we had a lot of fun. We've flown on airplanes together. He loves to drink bourbon and hang out, and he gets funnier with every drink he has. He knows more about college football than you'd ever imagine. And, give him his due. Him and George Stephanopoulos and Podesta and Bagala and Rambo Deadfish, they all used to get on the phone every morning and message Bill Clinton's presidency. So he's had a lot of experience. He's now saying Democrats as a party whine too much as he urged them to gloat about their successes leading into the 2022 elections. Just quit being a whiny party and get out there and fight and tell people what you did. James, what did they do? They failed on every legislative front they were fighting on. And it's the economy, stupid, James. Even you can't spin your way out of this, and you're good at it. So we see this dramatic shift here, but it's even deeper when you go a little deeper into Quinnipiac and these other polls that have come out, and this change when you dig deeper into this 9-point advantage, now a 5-point Republican advantage. It is the biggest swing in one calendar year in Gallup polling's 30-year history of tracking that question. American politics is about volatility. So the swing is tied to the popularity of party heads and whether or not they're getting things done for the American people. The American people are smart. The American people have figured out Joe screwed up COVID. They figured out he screwed up the borders. They figured out that he screwed up energy, that he screwed up the economy with a 40-year high in inflation. They figured out that he doesn't have a clue how to deal with Vladimir Putin, why he gave him a waiver for the Nord Stream pipeline, so he can be getting rich again by providing our Western European allies with energy, the lifeblood of their economy. I mean, he's making Russia rich again. Why? What is he doing when it comes to Taiwan and Chinese fighter jets flying over Taiwan airspace? Nothing. Anyway, Gallup senior editor Jeff Jones wrote that Trump was at his low when he left office. Biden's popularity started sliding in the summer. And independents, by the way, if you looked at the Gallup poll, the Quinnipiac poll, only 25% of independents now support Joe Biden. In 2021, 29% of U.S. adults identified as Democrats, 27 Republican, 42 independent. So that is the single biggest dramatic change out there. So it's and how's Joe going to fix any of those problems I mentioned? Is he going to get tough with Russia and now start increasing our production of energy, which would help our inflation, our economic woes, and help our allies, our Western European allies, and bankrupt Putin in the process? No, he's not going to do that. Is he going to challenge China? No, he's not going to do that either. Is he going to close off the borders? Nope. He's been aiding and abetting the law breaking the whole time. Is he going to bring us back to be a net exporter of energy and energy independent? That's never going to happen. He's beholden to this new Green Deal fanaticism and cult that has a stranglehold on everything that he does. Is he going to fix the economy? He can't. So I don't see his way out of any of this. The only thing that he might get lucky on is if Omicron ends up being the cause of herd immunity and maybe on paper things start looking better, but that would mean that there's not going to be another more virulent strain or variant that comes up, and that's always a possibility also. Tom Cotton says more Americans now are turning to the Republican Party to protect their rights. That is a big part of it as well, but a lot of it has to do with the failure. Anyway, now NBC News is reporting the White House is plotting a public reset as Biden agenda is failing. Chuck Schumer, as we speak, is involved in this failed attempt of his to get rid of the filibuster, for their No Integrity Voter Rights Act bill that he wants to pass. Why don't they want voter ID, signature verification, chain of custody controls, partisan observers observing, updated voter rolls? Only legal American citizens should be able to vote. Well, why are they against any of that? That shouldn't be controversial. Anyway, Joe Biden spent a quarter of his first year as president in the state of Delaware. That tells you a lot, too. NPR, as Biden prepares for his 1 year in office, there may not be a celebratory mood. CNN, Biden will mark inauguration anniversary, still beset by multiple crises. AP, after Biden's first year, the virus, disunity rage on. New York Times, Biden overpromised and underdelivered on climate. Now trouble looms for 2022. That's the mob. The people that helped elect him, the people that put him in the candidate and now presidential protection program. Even the mob and the media now is backing off of all things Joe Biden because he's failed at such a spectacular level. I mean, when you get all of the media, fake news, CNN, and even the AP, Gallup polling, I mean, this is a dramatic shift. Now, they're gonna try and the thing that I think most people need to understand here is Democrats, what they can never get done legislatively or at the ballot box, they're going to try to either use the courts or, in Biden's case, my prediction is he will start using executive action. For example, on the issue that he lost with vaccine mandates, he's going to find another loophole another way that he could probably sneak that back in. On the issue of Build Back Broke, he's going to once again probably take another stab at it. Even Reuters reported they're seeking to reset talks on it, and they're planning this very rare press conference for tomorrow at 4 p.m. And Joe Biden, I haven't seen him much this week at all, and he didn't even see him on MLK Day yesterday. And anyway, so then you're going to watch what they're going to do as they now are getting shut down this very day on the issue of getting rid of the filibuster for the voting rights bill. Watch them try to use executive action on that next. On Build Back Better, okay, they're going to pivot and maybe try to do it piecemeal or by executive action again. I mean, when you have the Washington Post, the columnist saying Biden is failing politically, needs to stop spinning his wheels. This is David Ignatius admitting Mitch McConnell had it right in his response to Biden's speech. It was all true. I mean, but for them to go to that extent is interesting. Americans say Biden has worsened key issues. Why? Because it's obvious. It's not. And I'll tell you the other thing that people have picked up on, that which we were way ahead of the curve on, and that is he's struggling cognitively, and he's frail, and he's weak, and he's not up to the job. And polls now even show a plurality of Americans see that also. And that's a problem that he can't fix.
Show the mainstream media loves to hate. This is the Sean Hannity Show.
All right, 25 to the top of the hour. How did I miss this from 11 days ago? Newsweek, and it didn't get widespread attention because I read everything every day. I mean, we do extensive work on this program to be as up to speed as we can. Headline is Biden's State of the Union address planned for March 1st is late due to the Olympics and Omicron. And they had a statement from the White House in this whole thing. I'm a little bit surprised, to be honest. What's the Dow down now?
They did not talk about this at all. They kept that real quiet.
They kept that only Newsweek, and you just did a Google search. You said it was hardly picked up.
No. First of all, the first thing that comes up is never Newsweek. So I'm like, right, well, that's weird. Yeah, Dow's down 513.
No, it's usually when it's only when Hannity's in the news it gets to 4,000.
Oh, then it's everywhere. Forget about it. We'll paper it.
Yeah, I never thought in my life I'd become clickbait, but apparently I'm clickbait.
Forget about it. Clickety click all day long. It's terrible.
Get it. Not exactly what I signed up for, but
can I tell you a little secret? And it's not a good one.
Well,
it won't be a secret now because we're telling everybody. So I have a bunch of different browsers set, and they're all on alerts. So if anything is said about you, or anybody talks trash about you, yada yada. Okay, good or bad, right? I get an alert.
I would never.
I can't even tell you
myself. I would never.
Well, it's not just Google, because Google's not the only thing out there.
That's
Google
true.
is the oppressor. Then there's DuckDuckGo,
so
Yahoo,
beeping
MSN,
all day
Brave.
is what you're telling me. Is that it?
Yada yada yada. There's a lot.
I mean, if I want to end up in, how much pain do you want to take? I mean,
for me, it's all day long. It's very painful.
Well, why do you read it? Why do you bother? Who cares?
Because I need to know who I have to fight. I need to know who I'm arguing with.
At this point in my life, whatever switch that is supposed to exist in your brain that cares what people think about you. And by the way, I care what my audience thinks about me. We're here to do a job that the mob and the media won't do. And we take our job seriously. I don't take myself seriously. But, we try to we dig in as deep as we can. And the idea that I'm going to Google alert or alert my one device, my phone, to every time.
Well, you don't even have email. So this is not, come on.
And I have no access to social media at all.
You have none of that. But I need it and I need to know. And in order for our audience to be informed.
You don't need to know.
I do need to know.
You don't. Who cares what these people think?
I care
a lot. They don't like me anyway. They've made up their mind, and I'm not going to change it.
I love correcting the record.
Okay.
I absolutely love it.
All right. Anyway, there's as Chuck Schumer makes his way, into what is a failure today, Schumer now is vowing to push his Senate vote on the filibuster rule. And he intends to force the vote and force the issue. And there's real palpable anger towards Manchin and Sinema. They're not, I don't see them caving today at all. I don't think that's a possibility at all. It's not going to happen. And then what Schumer did is he filled the trees, what it's called, to block any amendments by the Republicans to the House-passed voting rights elections bill. In other words, he also filed cloture on a motion to concur approved by the House bill. And filling the tree is, as our old friend Jamie Dupree points out, means that Schumer has introduced a series of placeholder amendments which prevent any other amendments from being considered on the Senate floor. In other words, right now the chance of an open, freewheeling debate with amendments is completely unlikely, which could have been a Republican tactic. This is all parliamentary. This, you know what it is? It's swamp sewer games that they play. That's the easiest way to sum it up. It's one big show, and for whatever reason, I think Schumer's wrong. Schumer thinks that he's going to put everybody on record as being against the voting rights bill of John Lewis. What do Republicans want? Republicans are the ones saying we need integrity measures in voting. They're the ones that don't want voter ID. They want vaccination mandates. They want, ID cards, vaccination cards to get into places. By the way, wait till you hear what's going on in Utah. So Schumer is now pushing for the Senate to vote on this for purely political purposes. It's a predetermined outcome, kind of like the January 6th committee. Cher is saying, as the midterms approach, if Democrats lose the House or the Senate, we are effed. It's actually just the opposite. She's close, but she's got the wrong party. There's a hunger strike apparently for voting rights. Okay, I want voting integrity so we can have integrity in the process and confidence in the results. Voter ID, signature verification, chain of custody control. In other words, mail-in ballots. We could watch it on a camera the minute it arrives. And anybody from any party, any place, anywhere can log in and make sure nobody's tampering with them. Updated voter rolls, and unlike New York City and other places, California is thinking about this too, and Vermont has this. Illegal immigrants can't vote. They're now allowed to vote in municipal elections in New York. What's fascinating is, as Joe Biden has been running around the country claiming Republicans back voter ID laws and it's, quote, Jim Crow 2.0, with one problem. And this was John Solomon's JustTheNews.com. Biden declared to the nation, he didn't actually come out and declare, he wasn't seen yesterday that I know of, that state laws that require voter ID or banning mass mail-in or absentee ballots amounting to an assault on our freedom to vote. You know what state he's describing? Delaware. Why in 50,587 years has Joe Biden never lifted a finger to get rid of the very restrictive laws in his own home state? Anyway, 4 days later, a poll in Michigan told a very different story. 3/4 of battleground state voters support ballot ID requirements. African American supporters, they expressed the highest level of support at 79%. And those findings have been confirmed with national polls as well, exposing a dilemma for Democrats. Recent national survey found that 4 key election reforms are supported by more than 80% of voters, according to Scott Rasmussen reports. Now, these include removing people who have died or moved from the voter registration lists, requiring everybody to show voter ID to cast a ballot, wanting all ballots received by Election Day, and have all voting machines made in the U.S. In Rasmussen's latest national poll, 78% of African Americans support voter ID. All right, that would be called election integrity measures. Sounds smart to me. Kamala Harris says Senate Democrats must pass voting rights bill or risk being complicit. And they're not going to forget. Senate Democrats earlier today called a special caucus meeting ahead of the filibuster. I'm sure that was a beatdown session of Manchin and Sinema. Pelosi went ballistic over opposition to this. They don't want their integrity. They don't want integrity measures. They want no integrity. because they think it's going to help them win. And Sanders turns up the heat as well on Manchin and Sinema. As the voting rights bill finally comes to the floor, there's only one vote which will matter. Will 50 Democrats vote to override the filibuster, protect American democracy, and pass the bill, or will Manchin and Sinema vote with the GOP and let the bill die? And then Schumer's turning up heat on this thing. You know, I actually think it helps Manchin and Sinema politically in their states. You know, Manchin is representing not Chuck Schumer. He doesn't represent New York or California. He represents West Virginia. West Virginia is a conservative state. And by the way, I still believe that Arizona is too. And integrity measures. Like Mark Kelly is vulnerable. I think Attorney General Brnovich can win out there. I really believe that. And Mark Kelly has been a reliable Schumer vote almost from the get-go. Rick Scott, senator, said Democrats will use an election overhaul legislation to cheat in future elections. By the way, after the disaster in Florida in 2000, they had a commission. I think, what was it, the Baker-Carter Commission? I know Baker's name is in there. Anyway, and they said you risk a lack of integrity the most when you have massive mail-in balloting. But with that said, they figured it out in Florida. Leo Terrell told me last night, blasting Democrats, that, you know, saying they're living in a 1965 time warp over racism claims in opposition to election law overhaul. So, you know, we're going to have to wait and see what happens on all of this. There's a lot going on there. By the way, the Commission on Federal Election Reform was a private bipartisan organization funded in 2004 by Jimmy Carter, James Baker, who was a top official under Presidents Ronald Reagan and George H.W. and George W. Bush even. He worked for him for a while. But, you know, a lot of this it doesn't really matter. Wall Street is tanking today because of the anticipated hike in interest rates coming at a faster pace than they were at the end of last year. Gas prices now are in a real danger zone with the price of a barrel of oil going so high. By the way, airline CEOs are warning this 5G, which is set to deploy on Wednesday, could cause a catastrophic disruption to flights. Remember Y2K? It sounds a little like Y2K-ish to me. But anyway, the airline wrote in letters obtained by Reuters, we're writing with urgency to request that 5G be implemented everywhere in the country, except within the approximate 2 miles of airport runways at affected airports, as defined by the FAA in January of 2022. This will allow 5G to be deployed while avoiding harmful impacts on the aviation industry, traveling public, supply chain, vaccine distribution, and our workforce and the broader economy. That's pretty interesting to me. I don't know what's going to happen with that. By the way, the most fiscally conservative Republicans, Rand Paul, Mike Lee, Mitt Romney, Marsha Blackburn, Ron Johnson, Rick Scott, John Thune, Ted Cruz, Mike Enzi, Mike Rounds. They're all about the same, to be honest, but just in case you were interested. Most Americans believe U.S. democracy is at risk of extinction. A Schoen Cooperman research poll. Only 26% of those surveyed said they felt U.S. democracy would be secured for future generations. 51% agreed with the statement, U.S. democracy is at risk of extinction. And an additional 23% said they're unsure. Polling data showed widespread pessimism and distrust. Well, are you shocked? By the way, one Wisconsin judge ruled that the ballot drop boxes that were used in 2020 were illegal. Oh. Well, election fraud. You didn't follow the laws. Just like all the states that have laws that say partisan observers get to watch the vote count start to finish. I got tipped off by Senator Mike Lee. This was in the Salt Lake Tribune and out in Salt Lake City, Utah. The governor is apparently looking to find a way to mandate mass vaccination and going as far to deploy the National Guard to ensure that people without proof of vaccination would pretty much not be allowed anywhere. And Mike Lee actually sent me a Facebook post that he had. The more I think about this story, the more troubling I find it. The Tribune is advocating for the militarization of law enforcement for the purpose of forcing people to consent to an unwanted medical procedure. If anything, it's even worse than that. The Tribune apparently wants military personnel to confine all unvaccinated people in Utah to their homes, effectively sentencing them to house arrest. According to the Tribune, this would have happened a long time ago if Utah were truly a civilized place. I'm not sure that the word means what they think it means. Perhaps in the Tribune's view, civilized means dominated by militaristic nanny states. In any event, what makes this any of this okay? Why is the